Hola mis estudiantes y bienvenidos a una lección sobre verbos de cambio radical. This is a really important concept that will help to round out your communication quite a bit as we wrap up Español 101. Así es, verbos de radical. Bueno, before we light right into stem changing verbs, let's review a little bit. ¿Qué es un infinitivo? Can you think of some examples of infinitives in Spanish? We've had quite a few this semester. Some examples of infinitives in Spanish, which end in AR, ER, and IR verbs, are words like hablar, beber, vivir, etc. And we have some verbos especiales, and that's what we're focusing on in this lesson, verbos de cambio radical. And we have three different types of verbos de cambio radical: E to IE stem changers, O to UE stem changers, and E to I stem changers. So we'll get more specific about it. Keep moving along. As we delve into this topic, I'd like to invite you to think about shoes and boots. No, I haven't lost my mind, class. There's going to be a very good reason for this. So as I start to present this information to you, just keep shoes and boots in mind, okay? Pues, entonces, verbos de cambio radical. Let's take a look here. We'll start with our first example infinitive, which is cerrar. Cerrar means to close. And here's how it shows up when we conjugate it in Spanish. If you take a look here at the conjugation, you'll see that as far as the endings go, I've treated it like any other AR verb. We've got o, as, a, amos, ais, ang. And hopefully those endings really ring a bell for you at this point for AR verbs. The endings in the presente are o, as, a, amos, ais, ang. What's special about stem changers is that something else happens. This little part of the verb, which is called the stem or the root of the verb, has a change when we conjugate it. And if it is an E to IE stem changer, that E changes to IE in many forms of the verb. So the yo form is cierro, tú cierras, él, ella, usted cierra, nosotros y nosotras cerramos, vosotros y vosotras cerráis, y ellos, ellas, ustedes cierran. So you notice as we go through that we have stem change, stem change, stem change, and stem change. And the yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes forms. But you notice that there is no stem change in the nosotros form or the vosotros form. So something I like to do is kind of diagram that out, where the stem change happens versus where it doesn't. And all of a sudden, look, clase, we have the form of a very fancy, modern and hip zapato. Look at that lovely shoe. ¿Verdad? Very, very stylish. The stem changes inside of the shoe or inside of the boot. You could turn it into a boot if you wanted to, I suppose, as some people say. So, stem changers change in every form except for nosotros and vosotros. And I haven't held you responsible for vosotros all semester, since it's a form that's really just used in one Spanish-speaking country, in Spain. So the rule you can remember is that stem changers change in every form except for nosotros. And you can be reminded of that by the zapato or by the bota, the shoe or the boot. Muy bien. So, you're probably thinking to yourself, that is awfully exciting. What are some more verbs besides cerrar that do this? Well, you have before you a list of E to IE stem changers: cerrar, comenzar, empezar, entender, pensar, perder, preferir, and querer. Those are the E to IE stem changers that you're responsible for. And then for the O to UE stem changers, we have dormir, encontrar, mostrar, poder, recordar, and volver. So you have two really important jobs, and hopefully you're getting used to this kind of approach. First of all, you need to know what these infinitives mean in English and in Spanish. So if I say to think, you need to immediately be able to produce pensar. And then beyond that, you need to know how to conjugate each verb in the presente. So it's a vocab exercise as well as a grammatical exercise. And you can see on this slide that I've underlined for you exactly where the stem change happens, the exact vowel that does the stem change. And I hope that'll help give you a start. So in order to start practicing, here's what I'd like you to do. You have in front of you a practicar. I've given you some subjects and some infinitives in Spanish. This is a great place to pause the presentation and work these through, figuring out the form of each infinitive so that it agrees with the subject that you've been given. You can push pause and then check yourself on the next slide. And here you have your answers for those 6. Noticing how the stem has changed in every single one of them except for número 2, because número 2, the subject was nosotros. Nosotros is outside of the boot or outside of the shoe. The stem does not change for the nosotros form. Bien, bien. So hopefully we're feeling pretty good about E to IE, E stem changers at this point. Let's get a little more involved. Instead of my handing you the infinitive in Spanish this time, let's see what you can start to come up with on your own. And I know you're just getting used to these infinitives. You might have to look back, but this time I've given you the infinitive in Inglés, and the idea is to do the same thing again, to make it agree with the given subject. So you can pause here and then check your answers on the next slide. Vale, bien, again, you can see that número 2 and número 7 are in the nosotros form, so there was no stem change. So carefully review those. And let's keep going. Bien. Let me tell you a little more about verbos de cambio radical. Here's another stem changer, jugar, which is to play, like when you play a game or play a sport. And it's actually a U to UE stem changer. We don't have a special category for this because there aren't a whole lot of verbs that change from U to UE, but jugar is a really good example of one, and it fits nicely with our topic for this chapter. Yo juego al tenis todos los lunes por la mañana. Another example, Lía y yo jugamos al hockey a veces con nuestros hermanos. Note that jugamos did not stem change because it's the nosotros form, and nosotros does not stem change. Another example of some commonly used infinitives that are stem changers, comenzar and empezar. Both comenzar and empezar mean to begin, and it doesn't matter which one you use, they're absolutely equal. So, unos ejemplos. Los niños comienzan a correr a las 9. The kids begin to run at 9 o'clock. Alicia empieza a estudiar cuando regresa a casa. She begins to study when she returns home. And you can notice that structure that's used with both of those, a conjugated verb plus a in this case, and then plus an infinitive to talk about when people begin to do. Bueno, another good stem changer is pensar, which is an E to IE stem changer. If you've ever heard the word pensive in English, to be pensive is to be in a thoughtful state, to be thinking about something. So that can help you remember pensar. Un ejemplo, pienso ir a la fiesta de Ramón el sábado. ¿Piensan ustedes estudiar en casa o en la biblioteca mañana? And one of the things that happens when you use pensar in this way, when you follow it by an infinitive, as in pienso ir, or piensan ustedes estudiar, it means more than just to think. It's a way of expressing what you plan to do. So it's like these sentences are expressing, I'm planning to go to the party of Ramon. And do you all plan to study at home or in the library? So it's a great, a new tool that you have, that you can talk about what people plan to do using the infinitivo pensar. Bueno, so here's some questions that are really great conversation questions that use stem changers. And I encourage you to take a good pause now and think about these questions, think about the infinitives they use and how they're stem changers, and to answer them in complete sentences. And then on the next slide, I've given you some possible answers. Your answers might be a little bit different. I may have said yes, you might say no, etc. But overall, our verbs should be the same. So when you check your answers, pay special attention to the verbs. Okay, so I hope you had fun working through those 8 preguntas en español, and here are my versions of the answers. And again, you should really focus on the form of the verb used. Mis clases empiezan. Quiero estudiar. No, no duermo. Sí puedo. Sí encuentro. Vuelvo. No pierdo. And prefiero. All those are great examples of stem changers in action, in real communication, by answering questions that might be made of you. Bien, there's one other type of stem changer. So far, I have revealed to you E to IE and O to UE. And this is just one more type of stem changer, verbs that change from E to I. Repetir, to repeat, is an example of an E to I stem changer. And I've underlined for you here on the table exactly where that stem change happens. So when you conjugate repetir, you end up with repito, repites, repite, repetimos, and repetís. There's no stem change because they're outside the boot. Oh, did you want to be reminded of the boot? Of course you did. Okay, excelente. There we go. Kind of looks like maybe somewhat of a moccasin at this point. But a zapato, a bota. I'm not an artist clase. Así es. Now you know my secret. No soy artista. But you see that stem is changing all throughout the shoe or the boot. So hopefully that will help you to remember. And the repetir is just a good old E to I stem. And there are a few more infinitives that are E to I stem changers. Not a really long list that we have to worry about, though. We have pedir, conseguir, repetir, which we just saw, and seguir. So these are a few more that you need to add to your vocabulary studies. As I mentioned before, you have to know these infinitives as vocabulary first. A good example to look at is seguir. A lot of people ask me about seguir, and the best thing to do with it is just to memorize it. It's sigo, sigues, sigue, seguimos, seguís, siguen. There's a little U that pops up in all the forms except for the O form. Don't really worry about why that happens right now. You can just memorize it. And you can also notice still the E to I stem change. So our E changes to I throughout the verb whenever you're inside the shoe or the boot. Yes. Vale, bien. Let me give you some more practice. I know you're dying for more practice and ready to put all of this together. So here are a few slides with some fill-ins, and this is a good, authentic practice, the kind of work I would have you do on the final exam. Hint, hint. I've given you the verb in English so that you can generate the Spanish infinitive on your own and then make it agree with the given subject. So I'll show you the first 3 here. There are a couple more slides of questions, and then you can check all of your answers at the end. A ver, amigos, and after all that hard work, aquí están las respuestas. Pido, pierde, volvemos, entiendes, duermen, queremos, seguimos, and consigue. Así es. Always remembering that stem changers change for every subject except for nosotros and vosotros, and that's what you're seeing here. So, muchas gracias. As you have questions when you're dealing with your tarea, don't hesitate to let me know. Buena suerte y gracias. Que tengan un buen día. Chao.